I recently got to visit the studio of Jan Van Essche in Antwerp, Belgium. The team there had a beautiful location to accompany the beautiful clothes that they make. I wanted to visit to examine the clothes and talk to Jan because he's such a great example of a fashion designer weaving culture and storytelling into his garments. This is an exceptionally special brand. They draft their patterns in the studio, they create all of their samples in the studio, and they even weave some of their fabrics in the studio. I sat down with Jan to discuss his process and design philosophy. I wish I could include everything in this episode, but we had to cut it down for the public version. If you'd like to watch the hour-long interview and the additional footage of Jan explaining his clothes in enormous detail, that footage is all available right now on the Patreon. But without further ado, here's Jan talking about a core theme in his clothes. It's a theme he calls openness in design. You mentioned the square-shaped patterns. Is that something that still has a lot of influence on your work now?
Basically, how I see it is your body shapes the garment or the garment shapes your body. Mm. So if you have more traditional Western tailoring, you get molded into, let's say, a suit jacket. Mm. But I mean, my grandfather was a tailor, and his father before him really liked classical handmade tailoring. Mm. And I have their books of alterations and how to, if somebody has a slanted shoulder or this kind of leg or that kind of missed shape, how to make it so they look as perfect and balanced from the outside to the standard shape that a suit should get. Mm. Amazing artistry, really ingenious stuff. But it's kind of forcing the wearer to become an image. Mm. But when I was in Africa at a certain point, it's a story I've told many times, but I saw a couple walking in a bubu, which is basically a square shape with a neck hole. Mm. But it's the fabric folded over the shoulder, close on the sides. You leave a space for the arms and you make a hole for the neck. Mm. So it's a rectangular dress that's worn all over the west of Africa and other parts too. And usually you just buy a yardage and you make those things. And often it's a three-piece suit, you could say, with a shirt, trousers, and the bubu. But in like more relaxed times or like just when you're not in full dress, you can also just wear the dress. Mm. And so I saw a couple in just the dress. He was long and thin, she was short and round, but they were wearing in the same fabric even. Mm. But they looked so different in the same piece. Mm. Just because if you have a square garment and you hang it over a body, your body will get emphasized. And if you have a certain way of walking or a certain posture or a certain shape, you shape the garment. Mm. And then I had this feeling like, that's what I want to do. It's like, let everybody be themselves, even if you're wearing my clothes. It's kind of designing and not designing, this stepping away and giving the wearer his full value. Not that the suit doesn't do that, but for me it was kind of a nice way to translate a certain life philosophy that I was looking for, I guess. And so that's a bit in the foundation, the difference for me between a straight line cut and a tailored cut. Mm. And this piece I wanted to show because it's kind of a tribute to this story that I told about a couple in Africa walking in this bubu. It's a bit of a similar shape to the bubu dresses, so they're very wide, often V-neck, just a big shape. Of course, I translated the pattern. I wanted to have some sleeves, and what I did here is that this is one piece, and I cut into it, folded it open, and I put the yoke part inside, which is actually based on an old Japanese kimono color, the way of cutting in and folding. So you have this, the yoke part is separate, but then the body is one, and it gives you some extra space to move as well.
So it's even down to the technical, the pattern level of the thing, the actual like engineering of the garment. It's allowing this philosophy of you're you and there's nothing wrong with you, and like you can just be the way that you are.
Yeah.
Like, and less of this like corrective, I guess.
Yeah. For instance, what I'm wearing, it's my version of a blazer, but my things never have a shoulder cut. It's never going like that. It's always just straight, and wherever your shoulder lands, it will fall over. And I translate that, I discovered it in Africa. Later I found out that the whole philosophy of the straight cut in Japanese kimono making is another way of doing this. There's Western clothing even from Belgium, from before a certain era, that is the same build up, just straight lines. If you make fabrics on a hand loom, you tend to get more straight built up pieces, I think, because you don't want to cut into a hand woven fabric, or you want to keep the whole.
It's precious.
It's precious. You've maybe even woven it yourself, or your brother or your family or whatever. You're very close to the making still, and then it's kind of honoring the maker, but also the wearer. And I kind of, from that starting point, built a pattern language that is always straight lines in a certain way, or that we always keep some of these principles in it to keep this openness, is what I call it. And that's what I try to do as much as possible. But then without making it folkloric. Because then you better buy the real deal.
Definitely.
So, this is another piece. What we did is we made it into a more wearable version, because normally you just wrap the fabric around and you tie it like traditionally. You just added a drawstring and pockets to make it a bit more accessible for modern day users. But the nice thing about the construction is that it's basically just a piece of fabric made tubular with one seam in the front.
Wow.
So it's just one tube. And you step into it and you wrap it around. I don't know if should I step into it? So you wrap it around like this, or in two times with two folds. And then you have a bit of a trouser feeling on the front. You tie it, and that's roughly it. So that's a little bit, and then you can play with the front, or you can even roll it tighter so that you don't have all that stuff.
That's beautiful.
So that's a good example of the straight line philosophy. You just have a rectangle and you shape it around your body.
Yeah. That's quite a pattern, a piece of pattern magic there. It's deceptively simple.
Actually, there's actually no pattern cutting in this.
Oh, none.
Just,
Okay.
Just straight lines, and you decide the shape. The circumference, but that's where simplicity becomes. If it's so simple that when you change it into something else, it's kind of, I think it's ingenious. Right? This is not my invention.
Of course, yeah. This is so beautiful. Thank you so much.
This is very welcome.
Yeah.
It's always nice to speak out loud and to hear, because you don't think like that so much.
You need to be given a TED Talk. This is...
I don't know.
You don't give yourself